It started as a celebration, the kind of glossy, picture-perfect Atlanta moment everyone expected to be sweet, loud, and joyful. Kirk and Jasmine planned it like a royal announcement, turning a simple gender reveal into a citywide spectacle filled with lights, cameras, celebrity faces, and whispers that something bigger than balloons and confetti was about to explode. The air felt strange from the beginning. Everyone arrived smiling, but no one trusted the smiles. People kept watching doors, watching faces, watching Rasheeda, who stood there looking calm while the whole city wondered if she would survive what was coming. Rumors had already been circling before the party even began. Fans were asking why Kirk chose to celebrate with Jasmine in such a grand way, why the guest list looked like a red carpet event, and why Rasheeda looked like she was bracing herself for a storm. And when the cameras started rolling, you could feel it. This was not just a gender reveal. This was a public test of loyalty, heartbreak, ego, and pride. Every laugh sounded a little forced. Every hug felt like a performance. Even the host could feel tension crawling across the room. Then the countdown began. The music dropped. Everyone held their breath. Pink or blue, boy or girl. But it was not the color reveal that broke Atlanta. It was what came with it. As the confetti erupted and cheers were supposed to fill the air, a different sound took over. Gasps, shouting, phones raised in disbelief. People backing up, faces freezing. Suddenly, the joyful reveal turned into chaos. A massive screen lit up behind them, and what flashed across it was not just a sweet announcement. It was a statement, a declaration, a sharp slap to long-standing loyalties that left Rasheeda standing there, blindsided once again. In that split second, emotions ran high. Eyes filled, voices cracked, friendships trembled, and the family was left divided. Fans online went wild, calling it the most disrespectful reveal in reality drama history. Atlanta felt like it stopped breathing. Some people sided with Kirk and Jasmine. Others stood behind Rasheeda, furious that she was thrown back into public humiliation in front of the world. And in that moment, as the music struggled to cover the tension, as people whispered and pointed and recorded every second, one thing became clear. This was no celebration. This was war disguised as happiness. And the fallout was only getting started. It all spiraled the moment that giant screen behind Kirk and Jasmine flickered brighter than the confetti, brighter than the smiles, brighter than any hope Rasheeda might have been holding onto in silence, because instead of a cute montage, instead of sweet nursery colors, the screen rolled a bold message that felt like a public crown placed on Jasmine's head while Rasheeda was still standing right there, and the crowd did not know whether to clap or gasp as the announcement boomed that this child was not just a baby, it was Kirk's fresh start, his new chapter, his new family moment, and the room trembled with that choice of words. Because Atlanta heard it loud and clear, he was not just celebrating a child, he was announcing emotional allegiance in front of everyone. The music tried to cheer but it sounded like noise, people whispered, some friends covered their mouths. Jasmine squeezed Kirk's hand like she already knew what would happen while Rasheeda just froze, blinking, swallowing, standing straight as if strength was her last shield. And fans later said she looked like someone who refused to break even when her heart felt like it had been dragged into the center of the room for public entertainment. Cameras caught every breath, every twitch, every forced smile, and the energy burned hotter when Jasmine gently leaned into the mic and said in this sweet but sharp tone, "This is our moment and we are proud of it," which sounded harmless at first but layered with everything Kirk just flashed. It shook everyone because it sounded like Jasmine was not only talking about the baby, she was talking about her place, her status, her story with Kirk, claiming it openly at a party that half the room believed still morally belonged to Rasheeda's dignity. Emotions ran high, body language changed, people who were smiling suddenly looked confused, and then someone from the crowd shouted, "Wow, that's cold," and it triggered a wave of murmurs as phones went up, comments started blasting online in real time, and the family circle around them tightened like a small battlefield of loyalty and rage. Kirk tried to laugh it off, patting Jasmine's back and saying, "Let's keep it positive tonight," but you could hear the strain in his voice, you could see his jaw set tight like even he did not predict how heavy that moment would feel once it landed in real life instead of in his planning. Rasheeda stepped forward finally, not to yell, not to collapse, but to breathe strength into the room, and when she spoke her voice was calm but heavy. "I hope this baby is born into love and honesty," because clearly honesty still makes everyone uncomfortable, and the crowd reacted like a shockwave, because she did not scream yet somehow those words cut deeper than any argument, and Jasmine stiffened, narrowing her eyes just slightly, biting her lip like she had been waiting for this clash all night. Friends rushed in between them, pretending to joke, pretending to lighten tension, but the truth was already in the air, thick and undeniable, and Kirk stood between two women who represented two worlds of his choices, looking lost for a second, like a man who created the storm but now feared drowning in it. You don't have to make this messy, raw, Kirk muttered, trying to control tone, but Rasheeda just smirked sadly. I did not make it messy, you did. Tonight just gave everyone better lighting to see it, and the crowd reacted again, because it felt raw, it felt personal. It felt like wounds that were never healed had just been ripped open again while balloons floated aimlessly above them. Jasmine stepped closer, lifting her chin. This is not about old feelings, this is about the baby and our peace. And Rasheeda turned her head slowly toward her, eyes steady. Peace never comes from disrespect disguised as celebration. And that line burned into everyone's memory as the defining moment of the night. Fans online were shocked. Commenters typed that they had never seen tension this bold, this naked, this unfiltered at a supposedly joyful event, and the room splintered into sections of support, some saying Jasmine deserved to claim her place, others shouting that Rasheeda deserved better than being blindsided again in public like this. Security shifted nervously, producers whispered, friends tried to pull people to separate corners, but emotions kept boiling over, and the baby reveal that should have united people instead divided everyone deeper. Kirk finally raised his voice louder than the music. Enough, tonight is supposed to be happiness, not a courtroom, and Jasmine's eyes softened toward him, but Rasheeda just nodded like she expected that reaction, whispering under her breath, happiness built on my pain always needs me to stay quiet, right, and that killed the room atmosphere entirely. Whispers flew that maybe Kirk had planned this grand narrative moment, that maybe Jasmine agreed to it proudly, that maybe Rasheeda walked in already suspicious but hoping humanity would win, and instead she got staged humiliation draped in glitter and confetti. Family members began arguing, friends started choosing sides openly, and in the middle of this heated chaos, the baby's gender barely mattered anymore because the emotional explosion overshadowed everything, and yet somewhere in that noise Jasmine proudly mentioned the baby was a girl, and for a moment people cheered half-heartedly, but then tension swallowed the joy again. Because this was no longer a sweet announcement, it had become a battlefield of pride, betrayal, and wounded love right in the heart of Atlanta with the world watching, and nobody had any idea how far the damage would spread from this one reckless night as voices continued rising, tears welled up, jaws clenched, and the family was left divided in a room that was meant to celebrate unity while drama kept tightening its grip, refusing to let go. The room kept vibrating with tension as if every wall had absorbed the shock and was now releasing it back into the crowd, and the moment security thought things might calm down, they actually grew worse because people who had stayed silent for years suddenly found their voices, and voices that were usually polite turned sharp, and whispers turned into full arguments right in front of the cameras. Someone close to the family shouted that Kirk should have warned Rasheeda if he planned to present Jasmine like the queen of the night, and someone from Jasmine's circle snapped back that Rasheeda had no right to control how happy they chose to be, and that sentence poured gasoline on already burning emotions. Rasheeda stood still, breathing slowly like a woman fighting to stay composed in a place that did not feel safe anymore, while Jasmine's hand tightened around Kirk's arm as if claiming possession in front of everyone. Kirk tried to calm both sides, lifting his hands, saying he just wanted peace, but there was nothing peaceful in the way his voice kept cracking or in the way his eyes darted between Jasmine and Rasheeda like he was terrified one wrong word would ignite something irreversible. The music was still playing, soft and awkward, like a soundtrack that no longer matched the scene, because this was no celebration anymore, this was emotional warfare dressed in glitter, staged inside a party where everyone came to smile and ended up witnessing heartbreak. A group of fans inside the event started chanting Jasmine's name to show support, and instantly another section of the crowd answered by calling out for Rasheeda, and suddenly the atmosphere felt like two rival teams screaming over a broken love story that never truly healed. Emotions ran high, people were tearful, and even those who came only for entertainment were uncomfortable now, because pain had become too real. Jasmine finally stepped forward again, voice shaking but stubborn, saying she deserved happiness without being shadowed by the past, and the word, past, hurt like a slap, because Rasheeda was not a distant memory, she was still standing right there, flesh and blood, carrying years of history with Kirk that Jasmine could never erase no matter how loud the celebration tried to be. Rasheeda gave a small laugh, not joyful, more like disbelief, and said quietly that happiness built on silent cruelty was not happiness at all, and that it might feel powerful tonight but life had a way of bringing truth back like a mirror you could not break forever. People gasped because she did not yell, yet every word felt heavy with old scars, and Jasmine's expression hardened like she was tired of being seen as the villain, like she wanted to rewrite the narrative tonight once and for all. She snapped back that she never stole anything, never forced Kirk into anything, that he chose her, he loved this child, he built this new life willingly, and fans online later said that moment felt like a confession, a declaration, and a challenge all at once. Kirk's face turned pale because instead of reducing the drama, her words increased it, and he suddenly found himself trapped between protecting Jasmine's pride and acknowledging Rasheeda's pain, and he could not do both, not tonight, not in front of Atlanta. Producers and friends begged them to step backstage, but nobody wanted to move first, because moving meant surrender, and pride was running stronger than sense. Then it happened, the spark nobody saw coming. A relative from Kirk's side finally exploded and shouted that Kirk was trying to rewrite history to make Jasmine comfortable while ignoring everything Rasheeda went through, and another voice shouted back that maybe Rasheeda should stop living in what used to be and accept that life had changed, and those words turned the environment into a storm. People pushed forward, people argued in clusters, and Kirk yelled for everyone to stop, voice booming, chest heaving, eyes full of regret for turning a child's celebration into a public battlefield. The saddest moment came when the mention of the baby came back into the conversation, because someone tearfully said the child deserved better than to be born into drama like this, and for one brief second silence filled the room. Jasmine's eyes softened because despite everything she really did care about her child, and Rasheeda's face shifted too, a flicker of compassion crossing her expression, not for Kirk, not for Jasmine, but for an innocent life tied to their chaos. But the peace did not last. Someone played back the screen message on their phone, repeating Kirk's bold words, "fresh start," loud enough that everyone heard it again, and it reopened the wound because those words felt intentional, like a statement that erased years of marriage, struggle, forgiveness, and resilience that Rasheeda had poured into her life with Kirk. More people began filming, commentators online exploded with opinions, memes, and heated debates, and the narrative spread outside the venue in minutes, turning into a citywide conversation. Suddenly everyone in Atlanta had something to say. Some supported Jasmine's courage to stand proudly, others slammed Kirk for humiliating his wife yet again, and many cried for Rasheeda, saying no woman deserved to be blindsided this publicly. Back inside the event, the emotional temperature kept rising, and Kirk finally reached a breaking point. He pulled Jasmine aside and whispered harshly that she should not have fed the fire, and Jasmine jerked her arm away, hurt, telling him she refused to shrink just to make the past comfortable. That private tension leaked into public energy instantly, and now even their unity seemed shaky. Rasheeda watched it all with tired eyes, and it was heartbreaking because she looked like a woman who had seen this cycle too many times and was done pleading for respect from someone who kept choosing chaos. Her quiet hurt did more damage than any shouting ever could. The crowd felt it, the internet felt it, everyone felt it. Fans were shocked, emotions ran high, and the family was left divided in a way that did not feel temporary anymore. Even the decorations looked sad now, balloons drifting like forgotten hope, confetti crushed under restless feet, and the happy music completely useless against the heavy mood. Someone whispered that this night would change everything forever, and they were right, because this was no longer just a messy event. This was a public turning point. Kirk stood in the center, breathing hard, surrounded by shattered trust, angry loyalty, fragile pride, and the undeniable reality that everyone now saw the truth of his choices under bright lights and loud reactions. What should have been joy had turned into a confession of broken loyalty, and while cameras rolled, friendships fractured, alliances shifted, tears fell, and nobody could tell how this night would end, only that nothing would ever be the same again as Atlanta watched history rewrite itself in the messiest way possible, and the story refused to calm down, only pulling everyone deeper into the emotional storm that had just begun. And just when everyone thought the night had already reached its worst point, fate decided to push it even further because people who had been quiet observers suddenly stepped into the center of the storm with their own emotions, their own grudges, and their own truths that had been held back for too long. The atmosphere felt heavier than before, like the air itself was thick with accusation and broken trust, and every glance carried history. Jasmine tried to straighten herself, lifting her chin like she refused to let embarrassment touch her, but her fingers trembled slightly, betraying the calm face she was forcing in front of cameras. Rasheeda looked away, not out of weakness, but like someone exhausted by reliving pain in public again and again while everyone pretended it was entertainment. Kirk stood between them like a man drowning in consequences he kept pretending did not exist, and fans watching online were shocked, typing nonstop as emotions ran high and the family appeared more divided with every passing second. Someone from Jasmine's family suddenly confronted Kirk, raising their voice, saying he should have protected Jasmine better if he planned to throw her into such a messy battlefield, calling him out for dragging her into emotional chaos while he refused to face his past properly. Instantly someone from Rasheeda's side snapped back that Jasmine walked into this knowing what she was breaking, that she was never innocent in this story, and how dare anyone blame Rasheeda for reacting like a human being. It became a war between families and friends, a back and forth of pain, loyalty, and anger, and Kirk tried to calm them, saying nobody needed to turn this into a bigger problem than it already was, but nobody listened because reality had already spilled beyond control. The music stopped completely this time, the DJ lowering the volume in defeat, because there was nothing left to pretend. This was raw emotion, loud and unfiltered, and even the staff looked nervous, unsure whether to intervene or step back. Jasmine snapped again, louder than before, telling everyone that she was tired of being treated like a mistake, tired of being whispered about like some shadow in Kirk's life, tired of being hidden, and that tonight was supposed to be about finally being acknowledged. The room reacted immediately, because those words revealed more than she probably intended, exposing how long she had felt like she was kept quiet, half accepted, never fully recognized. Kirk closed his eyes for a moment, because he knew she was telling the painful truth of her side, while Rasheeda stood there silently, fighting a storm of emotions inside her chest, because every word Jasmine said about being hidden was simultaneously a knife to her, reminding her that she had been dealing with betrayal long before tonight. Then came another twist nobody saw coming. A close friend of Kirk, clearly fed up, confronted him directly in front of everyone, saying he needed to stop acting like a victim of circumstances he created. He said Kirk made choices, repeated mistakes, hurt people, and then expected everyone to come together magically like nothing happened. That truth hit hard. You could see Kirk's face tighten, his jaw clench, and for the first time his anger broke through his calm mask. He raised his voice back, saying nobody understood how hard it was to balance everything, how everyone kept judging him without knowing his internal battles, how he was trying to move forward and everyone kept dragging him backward. The argument grew, louder and sharper, and now it was not just about the baby or the reveal. It was about years of pain, years of choices, years of complicated love, broken promises, pride, ego, and unspoken hurt finally exploding in public. Fans online could not believe it, people recording were shaking, reality felt surreal, and yet it was painfully real to every heart in that room. Jasmine's eyes filled, not with weakness but with frustration, anger, and fear that this beautiful moment for her child had become another scandal where she was blamed for everything. Rasheeda's expression softened just slightly when she saw Jasmine tearing up, because beneath the rivalry, beneath the tension, beneath everything messy, there was still a human moment where another woman was breaking in front of the world, and Rasheeda knew that feeling too well. Then the crowd reacted again when Jasmine said something that shifted energy entirely. She cried out that she was tired of being called the problem when Kirk kept choosing her, when he promised her a future, when he looked her in the eyes and said this child mattered to him more than anything. And when she shouted that he told her this baby was his reset, the room froze. The word echoed. Reset. Stronger than previous phrases. Worse than fresh start. It sounded like he wanted to erase, wipe away, replace, rebuild without acknowledging the damage already done. You could practically feel Rasheeda's heart crack again at that word. She looked straight at Kirk, hurt and disbelief mixing in her eyes, because even if she had suspected something like that, hearing it out loud felt like getting stabbed with confirmation. Fans online exploded with reactions again, calling it cruel, calling it disrespectful, calling it shocking beyond anything they had expected. Friends tried to reach for Rasheeda, but she gently moved their hands away, needing to stand on her own, needing to hold her dignity without being comforted like a helpless victim. She lifted her head and asked Kirk calmly, "Did you really say that? Did you really tell her that this baby is your reset?" And her voice was so soft that it hurt more than shouting ever could. Kirk hesitated. That one pause told the truth before his mouth could. Jasmine looked at him, pleading for honesty, needing him to stand beside her words. He finally admitted quietly that he might have said something like that in a moment of trying to explain his feelings, and the crowd reacted like thunder. That was it. That was the emotional earthquake. That was the confirmation everyone needed to understand why tonight hurt as deeply as it did. Rasheeda gave a slow nod, not dramatic, just resigned, like someone who had heard enough, like the last piece of hope she held finally slipped away. She did not scream, she did not crumble, she simply breathed, and said, "Then congratulations on your reset," with a sad half-smile that felt like goodbye wrapped in strength. Jasmine looked confused because she won in one way yet somehow still felt shaken, because even winning in this story did not feel like victory, not with so much brokenness around it. Kirk tried to reach for Rasheeda, saying her name, but she stepped back, and that simple movement spoke louder than any argument. The room fell into heavy silence for a moment, the kind of silence that feels alive, thick, and painful. Emotions were painfully raw, the family was fully divided, and fans were completely shocked because nobody expected the gender reveal of a child to turn into a full confession of loyalty shifts, broken love, shattered respect, and exposed vulnerability on such a massive public stage. And yet the night was still not over, because whenever emotions reach a breaking point like this, something unexpected always follows, and Atlanta stood on edge, watching breathlessly as the story refused to slow down and everyone braced for what might come next. The silence after that confession did not bring peace, it brought pressure, like the world inhaled but forgot how to exhale, and everyone inside that venue could feel it squeezing their chest. Kirk stood there stunned, holding regret like a weight he could not drop, while Jasmine stared at him like she was realizing the man she trusted to protect her happiness was also the man who kept creating storms no one asked for. Rasheeda turned slightly, as if she was ready to leave everything behind, but the room was not finished with her yet. Destiny was not ready to let this story close quietly, and Atlanta was nowhere near done watching. Someone gently tried to guide Rasheeda toward the exit to save her dignity, but voices rose again because pain refused to leave unspoken. One of Rasheeda's close friends stepped forward with eyes blazing, saying she was tired of watching Rasheeda hurt in silence while Kirk kept calling his damage mistakes, like mistakes did not come with consequences. She accused him of playing victim every time he faced backlash, of wanting sympathy when all he offered others was shock after shock. Instantly, Jasmine's camp bristled, because they were done seeing Jasmine painted as the villain over and over. One cousin snapped that people only felt bad for Rasheeda because she was quiet, not because she was innocent, and everybody gasped because that crossed a line nobody dared touch before. Emotions ran high again. The family was more divided than ever. Even fans watching from afar could feel it, typing rapidly, taking sides in real time, filling timelines with heartbreak, anger, and disbelief. Kirk tried to shut it down, but his voice no longer held authority here. He had lost control of the room, and honestly, he had lost control of his narrative too. Jasmine wiped her tears like a fighter preparing to defend herself again, lifting her head with shaky confidence. She spoke, softer now but fiercer in meaning, saying she did not break a happy home, she did not steal a loyal man, she walked into a situation where love was already broken long before she existed, and she refused to keep carrying that blame for the rest of her life. The room reacted with another shockwave because her voice carried truth wrapped in pain. Yet at the same time, people glanced at Rasheeda, remembering all the nights she stood by Kirk, the forgiveness, the strength, the long history Jasmine could never erase no matter what she said. Rasheeda turned back slowly, her eyes shining but steady. She did not argue. She did not insult. Instead, she said something that froze everyone where they stood. She told Jasmine she was not mad at her anymore. She was mad at herself for believing in Kirk longer than she should have, for fighting for something that kept proving it did not deserve her effort. She said she had stayed, forgiven, smiled, defended, and waited, and in return she kept receiving public humiliation dressed up as life changes. When she spoke those words, Jasmine's anger deflated a little, because this was no longer competition between women. This was a story of a woman tired of fighting. Kirk felt it too. You could see the fear in his eyes because he suddenly realized he might not just be in the middle of drama. He might be losing someone permanently. He stepped forward, trying to apologize, stumbling over words, saying he never meant to hurt her like this, saying emotions were complicated, saying he wanted everyone to coexist. But the crowd was done with his excuses. Someone yelled that he loved attention more than stability. Someone else said he thrived on chaos because it kept him relevant. Comments online echoed the same thing, calling him selfish, calling him messy, calling him reckless with hearts that trusted him. Jasmine listened and felt another sting because even though she stood beside Kirk, she could see how people viewed him, and it scared her whether this chaos would someday reach her too, whether today's reset would someday become someone else's fresh start that erased her as well. That fear flickered in her eyes for a second like a shadow passing through sunlight. The energy shifted again when a producer from behind the scenes finally stepped forward, pleading for everyone to calm down because cameras were everywhere and nothing said tonight could ever be erased. But it was too late. The world already heard everything. Then, in the middle of all that emotional noise, a moment of brutal honesty broke through when Kirk finally snapped and admitted that he did not know how to fix what he broke, he just knew he was tired of being painted as a monster when he was only trying to move forward. He said he loved Jasmine. He said he still cared about Rasheeda. He said he just wanted peace. That confession did not help. It hurt more. Fans watching were stunned because it sounded like a man wanting comfort from two women he broke instead of accepting the fallout of his actions. Jasmine looked down, realizing she was now part of a sentence that included pain he refused to own. Rasheeda gave a tired laugh, like she finally understood something she had ignored for years, and she said life had shown her enough now, she did not need any more proof. She told him that love without respect is just chaos with flowers on top, and she was done holding wilted petals pretending it was still a bouquet. Those words hit deep. The crowd responded with heavy silence again, some people crying quietly, others shaking their heads, recording every second like they were watching history collapse in slow, painful motion. Atlanta was watching. Fans were shocked. Emotions were tearing the room apart. Jasmine suddenly reached for Kirk's hand, not out of victory, not out of pride, but out of a terrified instinct not to lose the last piece of certainty she had left. She whispered that they still had a child coming, they still needed to stand strong, and her voice cracked like a confession. Kirk squeezed her hand back, but he looked shaken, like he did not know whether strength was still something he could promise anyone. Rasheeda watched them for a moment, and instead of jealousy, there was a strange quiet acceptance in her eyes, like she finally realized she was no longer fighting Jasmine, she was letting go of Kirk. She simply whispered that she hoped the child would bring healing, because adults clearly had forgotten what true love and responsibility looked like. The crowd nodded, because even in heartbreak, Rasheeda still sounded like the only stable heart in the room. Then another commotion broke out when a group of guests began arguing again, blaming each other, blaming Kirk, blaming producers, blaming fate, and security moved in to separate people. The scene looked chaotic, heartbreaking, surreal. Confetti on the floor, balloons still floating, but joy completely gone. What was supposed to be a memory for a child had turned into a cautionary tale for millions watching. Still, the night refused to end. Someone shouted that Rasheeda should not walk out like she lost, that she should speak her truth fully, and for a moment she looked like she might finally explode after carrying everything for so long, but she surprised everyone again by choosing dignity over destruction. She said she did not need to fight anymore. Life had already spoken louder than she ever could. Those words landed like a quiet thunder, powerful without shouting. Jasmine stood frozen, unsure whether to feel relieved or guilty, because winning in this story strangely felt like losing something sacred too. Kirk tried again to speak, but his voice sounded small in a room that no longer believed him. Atlanta was shaken. Fans were stunned. People whispered that this night would haunt everyone involved. And even though voices slowly lowered, even though arguments softened, the emotional damage sat in the room like a ghost refusing to leave, waiting only for the next spark to ignite it again, because everyone knew deep inside that this story was far from over and something else, something even more explosive, was still waiting to unfold before the night was done. The energy in the room shifted again, but instead of rage, it turned into something even more dangerous, something heavier and quieter, the kind of tension that feels like it is crawling under everyone's skin while the world pretends to still be standing. People were no longer just angry, they were emotionally drained, yet they could not walk away because curiosity and heartbreak chained them to the moment. Cameras were still rolling. Phones were still up. Atlanta was still watching in silence. Jasmine held onto Kirk's hand like it was the only stable ground she had left, but her grip said something different than confidence. It looked more like fear, like she was terrified the foundation beneath her life might collapse the same way it just did beneath Rasheeda. For the first time since the chaos began, Jasmine's eyes revealed something raw. Doubt. Not about her child, not about being a mother, but about the man standing beside her. She whispered to Kirk that she never asked for a war, never asked to be the villain, never asked to be part of a story where love came blended with humiliation. She said she only wanted a family, happiness, and respect. And the room fell still again because beneath all the drama and gossip, that was a human truth people could not ignore. Kirk opened his mouth but paused, because what could he possibly say that had not already been drowned in excuses? His face softened and for a brief second he did not look like the man who caused chaos, he looked like someone who realized how deeply he had shattered every life connected to him. He tried to apologize again, but his voice cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, in a tired human way that made the apology feel real yet painfully late. He said he never intended to hurt anyone, that life spiraled in ways he did not control, that he believed somehow they could all exist in peace. But peace does not live beside betrayal. Everyone knew that, even if he did not want to accept it. Rasheeda stood quiet, listening, letting him speak because interruption no longer felt necessary. She had finally reached the point beyond arguing, beyond anger, beyond tears. The point where the heart simply stops fighting. She looked at Jasmine, not with hatred, not with competition, but with something close to strange compassion mixed with warning. In a calm, steady tone, she said Jasmine needed to understand that loving Kirk meant living in an unpredictable storm. She said she once stood where Jasmine was standing now, certain, devoted, hopeful, believing she was different. She said she believed love would fix flaws, patience would fix betrayal, loyalty would fix lies. And one by one she learned the truth the hard way. The room listened without breathing. Jasmine swallowed hard because even if she wanted to deny it, a small voice inside her recognized the possibility of that future. Fans online were shocked. Emotions ran high. The family was still divided, but now something gentler hovered over the chaos, something like reflection, something like a reluctant truth settling in. A few guests started crying quietly because they were not watching a battle anymore, they were watching three lives breaking openly in front of the world. This was supposed to be joy. Instead, it turned into emotional exposure none of them might ever fully recover from. Then out of nowhere another twist arrived, because drama has a strange way of sprinting in just when everyone thinks things might calm down. One of the producers, desperate to regain control, suggested they take a break, cut cameras, regroup, and salvage what was left of the event. But someone from Kirk's side refused, saying reality was reality and pretending would not fix anything. That person insisted Kirk needed to choose right there, right in front of everyone, once and for all. No neutral ground. No, I care about both. No hiding. No escaping. And that suggestion electrified the room again. People gasped. Some backed away. Others leaned closer like they were witnessing history. Jasmine stiffened. Rasheeda froze. Kirk's eyes widened. The idea hung in the air like a heavy demand, pressing against his chest. Fans online went wild because if that happened, it would change everything permanently. Atlanta would never forget that moment. Jasmine whispered don't do this like she was begging fate to show mercy, saying this was not the time, not the place, not like this. But the damage had already shaped the night. Curiosity burned too bright, hurt demanded resolution, and people insisted. Kirk tried to protest, saying nobody should force life decisions under pressure, saying emotions were raw, saying this was cruel to everyone involved. But as he spoke, it sounded less like protection and more like avoidance. Rasheeda watched him with tired understanding because she knew something about Kirk that maybe Jasmine was just beginning to understand. Decisions were never his strength. He loved comfort more than clarity. He loved being wanted more than being right. And that personality flaw, that need to hold everything without fully committing to anything, had built every broken piece of tonight. Still, the crowd did not back down. Voices urged him to be honest for once in his life. Choose your heart, choose your loyalty, choose your direction. And for the first time Kirk had nowhere to hide. Rasheeda stood on one side, strong but emotionally bleeding. Jasmine stood on the other, shaking but determined. In the middle stood the child yet to be born, that life waiting to inherit the consequences of adult choices. Kirk looked between them like his soul was being torn apart. He turned first to Jasmine, telling her she meant something real, telling her the baby mattered deeply, telling her he never wanted her to feel unwanted again. Tears rolled down Jasmine's face because hearing that sounded beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Then he turned to Rasheeda, and his voice broke in a different way. He thanked her. He acknowledged the years she carried him when he did not deserve it. He admitted nobody had ever matched her strength, her loyalty, her patience. He said even if their story was ending, he would always owe her more than he could repay. And the room fell silent because even if this was painful, it was the first time he sounded fully honest. But honesty brings consequences. Rasheeda nodded, tears finally escaping her eyes, not because she still wanted him, but because closure hurts even when you crave it. Jasmine stood trembling, afraid to hear the final words that would shape her future. Kirk took a long breath. The crowd leaned forward, phones zoomed in, hearts pounded, and then he said it. He said his future was with Jasmine and the baby. No screaming, no cheering, just stunned, broken silence. Rasheeda closed her eyes like she expected it, like a part of her already knew, and when she opened them again, they were softer but stronger. She whispered, "Okay," and it sounded like finality, like the last page of a painful chapter sliding shut. The crowd reacted with shock and heartbreak. Fans online exploded. Some called him heartless. Some said it was expected. Some said Jasmine won. Some said nobody truly won tonight. Because what kind of victory is built on ruins? Jasmine broke down crying fully, not in triumph but in overwhelming relief mixed with guilt. She clung to Kirk, almost collapsing into him, and he wrapped his arms around her with shaking hands, like he was both relieved and terrified of what his choice meant. Rasheeda did not break down publicly. She simply straightened her shoulders, wiped her tears, and held herself with quiet dignity that made even her harshest critics respect her in that moment. She walked slowly, not running, not storming, simply walking like a queen leaving a battlefield she no longer needed to conquer. People tried to stop her to comfort her, but she smiled gently and kept moving, saying she needed peace. One word that carried a lifetime of exhaustion and growth. The crowd parted for her like the world understood it was witnessing an ending, not just of a relationship, but of a long emotional era. As Rasheeda walked out, Jasmine watched with trembling empathy, because no matter what anyone said about them, this was still a woman who once loved the same man deeply, a woman who had been humiliated in front of millions, a woman who deserved more than pain. Jasmine whispered a soft apology under her breath, not because she believed she was responsible for everything, but because humanity still lived in her heart. Kirk watched Rasheeda disappear through the doors and something inside him looked like it broke permanently, because choosing does not just bring relief, it also brings loss. The room stood heavy in silence. Emotions still raw, families still tense, Atlanta still stunned, fans still arguing, and yet even in the middle of chaos, there was an eerie sense that fate had just carved a new path for all three lives. A path filled with uncertainty, fear, hope, love, guilt, and consequences that were nowhere near finished. Because even though a decision had been made, decisions always come with aftermath, whispers, rumors, resentment, healing, rebuilding, and possibly more destruction. And everyone there knew deep down that this story was not closing. It was only changing shape, and the night still held more secrets waiting to surface before the confetti settled and the lights went dark. So now everything circles back to you, because after all this mess, all this noise, all these gasps and whispers spreading through Atlanta like wildfire, it comes down to the question sitting in your chest right now, the question nobody is brave enough to answer out loud: was this gender reveal a celebration, or was it a public declaration of betrayal? Because while the confetti has fallen, while the cheers have faded, while the balloons slowly deflate under hot city air, the wound inside this family is still very much open. Rasheeda is still standing there trying to hold her strength together. Jasmine is holding a future that feels heavy and bright at the same time, and Kirk is stuck between reality, image, and the chaos he helped create. And the city has not stopped talking for a single second, fans are shocked, emotions ran high, and the family was left divided in a way that feels impossible to repair, because now the whole world has seen it. Atlanta saw the smiles that were not real smiles, the hugs that felt forced, the congratulations that sounded shaky, and the silence that spoke louder than any scream could. And you could feel it, the tension, the heartbreak, the confusion, as if everyone knew this story is not ending here. This is only the beginning of something much bigger, much louder, and much more dangerous for every relationship tied to this situation. And you, watching, listening, breathing in every moment of this madness, you have become part of it too, because your thoughts, your reactions, your judgment, they all feed the fire, and you know it. You saw the cracks in their voices, you heard the tremble behind every bold word, and now you cannot unsee it. You cannot just walk away like nothing happened, because deep down, you are wondering, what happens next? Does Rasheeda finally break? Does she walk away for good, or does she stay and fight like she always has? Does Jasmine hold on to this new life with pride or guilt? Does Kirk finally face consequences or smooth talk his way out one more time? Atlanta is waiting, the industry is watching, every fan is sitting on the edge of their seat, and the unanswered questions are louder than the reveal itself. And while everyone pretends to move on, nobody really is, because drama like this does not disappear, it lingers, it grows, it spreads, and it returns stronger than before. And right now, you are standing right in the middle of it with us. So here is where you come in. If you have been following every twist, every shout, every tear, then you already know this is only part of the storm. And if you want every update, every secret conversation, every shocking twist before anybody else hears it, you need to stay locked in with us. Make sure you like this video right now, because when you do, you are telling this story that you are not done yet. You still want to see what happens, you still want the truth, and if you have something to say, if you feel angry, if you feel sympathy, if you feel confused, then go to the comments and pour it out. Tell us, whose side are you on? Do you think Rasheeda deserves better? Do you think Jasmine is really the villain or just caught in something bigger than she imagined? Do you think Kirk is misunderstood or fully responsible for every broken piece falling to the ground? Your thoughts matter, your voice shapes the conversation, and we are reading every single one, because this is not just entertainment anymore, this is a story that people are emotionally tied to, and your reaction is part of what keeps it alive. And do not forget to subscribe, because if you think this reveal was wild, if you think this shock was something unprecedented, trust me, Atlanta is not done shaking yet. There are more confrontations waiting, more unexpected confessions, More cracks in relationships that everyone once believed were unbreakable, and the only way you stay ahead of all of it is by sticking with us. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, stay ready, because the next chapter could drop at any time, and when it does, you do not want to hear it from someone else. You deserve to be here first, to see it unfold in real time, to be part of the conversation as it happens, not after it passes you by. So take a breath, think about everything you just witnessed, the smiles hiding pain, the cheers covering tension, the love mixed with betrayal, and ask yourself, what would you do in Rasheeda's place? What would you do if you were Jasmine? What would you do if you were Kirk, standing between pride, guilt, image, and truth? And while you sit with that question, stay right here with us. Because this story is far from finished, this family is far from healed, and Atlanta is far from quiet. We will be right here when the next shock hits, when the next betrayal rises, and when the next truth explodes. So like, comment, and subscribe, because you are now part of this journey, and we are going to see it through together, every tear, every shout, every twist, until the very end.